Rene Enriquez, a.k.a. Boxer. Thanks for pulling up the StreetTV, man.
No problem, man. It's my pleasure. We've known each other for a long time, and since I was in town, I figured might as well stop by.
Yeah, I think ever since the book was published by Chris Blackford has been, he was a friend of mine for about the early 2000s, late 99, early 2000s, and I think your book was 2009, and he invited me to the book signing at Brahman's in Pasadena, and then I guess he exchanged our information in 2009.
We're at Brahman's bookstore in Pasadena, California, at Chris Blatchford's book signing on his new book called The Black Hand, which is a book about the Mexican Mafia. Through an extensive number of interviews with Boxer Enriquez, he was able to write this book, only the second book ever published about the Mexican Mafia. And we're going to see if we can get an interview with him to find out what it was like, his journey publishing this book on the Mexican Mafia. In the very beginning, how open was he to talking to you about this project of yours?
Well, that's an interesting question. I mean, Rene and I had been corresponding to each other for a decade, usually just a letter at Christmas time. And it all stemmed from when I did a story about him, I think it was like 95, which I'd mentioned him probably 3 or 4 times in other stories that I did. And I got a call one day from his mother, who was furious with me that I was making her son look like this horrible gangster all the time. She said if you would write him a letter, you would find that he really is into talking to youth about not getting into the gangs and picking another way of life. So I wrote him this long 2-page letter, and thinking the last thing I really needed was some mafia soldier's mother to be mad at me. And he wrote me back a long, like 3-page letter, handwritten. And basically the gist of it was, I don't love the way you're portraying me, but I know it's just, your job, and I have no animosity towards you, but keep the lines of communication open.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's about the time. About 2008, 2009.
Oh, that's crazy, because that's 16 years ago.
Quite a bit. Time flies when you're having fun.
And this is the first time, well, really not the first time, but the first time we're face-to-face outside of the courtroom.
We're on opposite ends of the field there.
I think we were in the courtroom on 2 different cases.
Yes.
I was in the audience for Lalo, and then I worked on Sinangra.
I recall.
Yeah.
I recall seeing you.
So we have been in the same room before.
Yeah, but it's never been adversarial. I've never felt that way. I you do your job, I do my job, and we're just at different ends of the spectrum. That's all.
But I do feel like our communication was limited after one of those cases. We used to have an ongoing communication via email, phone, and then it kind of stopped after, I think, Sanan. I'm not sure if I remember that correctly.
Yeah, but there was, in my mind, I'm looking back and I'm like, I've never had any personal beef with you. I never took it personal. Like, whatever you say on stand, that's what you say. That's your job, right?
You did call me before you were released, saying that you were a little hard on me.
Little hard on me. Little hard on me. But it's the business. This isn't for the faint of heart, right?
Well, I think it's ironic to say we're a little hard on you when we were discussing your parole eligibility after being convicted of 2 murders.
Yeah, I mean, there's no easy way. There's no easy way to pretty that up. I get it. You guys are doing your job, but I think that maybe I anticipated that because we knew each other, it would be a little easier going. But no, you're a hard line, dude. You're a hard line, and as a journalist, you have to be that way. I understand that.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what I said, but maybe I'll drop a clip in right here of what I said when I was doing the podcast with FG.
There's a well-known Mexican Mafia dropout named Rene Boxer Enriquez. Mm-hmm. Chris Blatchford from Fox 11 News wrote a book about him. He was one of the top dudes, when he was doing this thing in the 80s and 90s. Mm-hmm. Then in 2002, he dropped out. And he ended up becoming an informant for the government. And he's a convicted 2-time murderer, but he's up for parole. And he's been up for parole.
Right.
But the governor always denies his release. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know if a lot of people understand this. The CDC can grant your parole.
Right.
And say, we deem that you're ready to go.
Right.
But the governor has 120 days to approve it.
Right.
So just because the CDC says you can go home doesn't mean that you're going home. But usually the governor signs off on it.
Right.
But the governor hasn't been signing off on this Mexican Mafia dude named Boxer. and he's about to be he's been already paroled in January. So the state of California, or the Governor Newsom, has till the end of May. My question is, and this is just a question for everybody to ponder: should a 2-time convicted murderer who ran one of the most powerful prison gangs be released?
How long did he do?
He's been in there since 1990. So it's been like, let's say 30 years.
He did 30 years.
Yeah, he's been in there 30 years. And he killed a female named Cynthia Galvadon, and her family always sends letters to the governor, do not let this man out. But, you know, that's what families do most.
No doubt.
And so he killed a female, he killed a dude on some prison politics stuff on the streets. So 30 years later, what do you say, F?
30 years later, I say that if he took a life, you know, my whole stand on it is if you get caught, then you should do life, you know. But I also heard you say he was an informant. So that probably was part of the reason that he's getting the love that he's getting as far as the recommendations from the CDC, you know, his cooperation. So whether I agree with it or not, when I already know that when the state of California, when the government wants somebody locked up and somebody assist them in that, they'll let a dude out no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, that's the purpose for assisting the government.
No doubt.
There's a trade-off here.
It's a trade-off.
You want me to testify? This guy, Boxer, by the way, I know I've witnessed him testify in about 6 trials.
Damn.
I believe he's testified in 8 or 9. There might have been a few that I missed.
Super duper.
And get this, one time he testified in a case against my client.
Damn.
Yeah, and I'll let people know a little bit. I end up meeting him over the phone because I interviewed Chris Blatchford, who wrote the book about him.
Oh, okay.
So I did this cool little video with Chris Blatchford at a book signing, and Chris Blatchford hits me up one day and says, "Hey, Boxer just called me from prison. He said he likes the video you did." I said, "Oh, okay. Give him my number. Tell him to holler."
Right.
So he hit me up one day, and we just talking on the phone about Mexican Mafia history, because a lot of people know that I understand Crip and Blood history.
Right.
But I also study this Mexican gang history too.
Yeah.
So we talking about Mexican Mafia history, but then I realized he's heavily involved in assisting the prosecution in these trials. And then one day we're actually pitted against each other.
Yeah.
And ever since that case, I ain't never heard from him again.
Right.
Hey, I want to talk about a specific topic with you right now because I only got you for a little short period here. And I want to go straight to the hard part. The hard part is you deciding in 2002 to leave the organization, to leave La Jeme, to leave the Mexican Mafia. I believe your name was in the hat at least 3 other times, and I understand that that's a stressful living for some people. There might be some guys that they just take it, you know, whatever happens. But let's talk about being in the hat 3 times and then eventually deciding to leave the organization. So let's go back to the first time where the pressure was on you within your brothers in the organization.
I was in Folsom in 1985. I remember Bevito and Kilroy, Alvarez and Kilroy Roybal, politicking on me and Shy's whole crew, right? They had already started that division between this elitist group and the nobodies in their minds, right? Or the cardenales without palabra. And that was Bevito Alvarez. So I felt the pressure then early on. I'm 6 months within my membership. I knew it wasn't for me, and that this wasn't the brotherhood that I had originally had a concept of, right? So that was the first instance. The second instance.
Well, let's get to the first one. So the first one is right when you get in, shortly after your induction. Kilroy, he's a heavyweight in the organization. You must have felt a certain amount of pressure when you got a guy like Kilroy who's been there since like 1961. I'm assuming that he was a heavy shot caller still in the 80s. What was that like?
It's overwhelming. I mean, I'm a 21-year-old kid, and I'm dealing with titans in the organization. These guys have just like massive history in the mob. But I kind of like Kilroy in the inception, right? I remember going to the house with him in his cell because he lived like 2 doors adjacent from me on AA1 in Folsom 5 block. And they told me, go in the cell and make sure he doesn't OD tonight. So his cell, he went to my cell, and I went to his cell. I ended up ODing in Kilroy's cell. Rather than protecting him from ODing, I ended up ODing. And I remember waking up in the morning, getting admonished by the brothers. You were supposed to go in there and take care of him, yet you go in OD. So I got along pretty good with him. He was a clown. He was very gregarious. He was an easygoing guy until he got into the politics. That's when I started disliking him. And that's when I realized the danger of the mouth, of the spoken word in the organization, because that's where the politics started flying, personal dislikes, little animosities between brothers, and I detected that then, and it was like I was really a kid, you know, and these guys have been doing this their whole lives, so they knew how to handle it. I didn't.
Did you know, because Kilroy was released from prison in '93, so only 8 years later, and by the end of his sentence, he was already being politicked on. Did you know that his days was coming to an end, or in '85 he looked like a strong figure in the organization?
'85 he was a strong figure. Him and Bevito were like the key figures in Folsom, and they were the head political factions, and they rounded themselves with sycophants like yes men, like Bessie Sagato, Wino Grajeda, guys like that, Chino from Garrity, and they were all their yes men. And they had their little crew of individuals that agreed with everything they said and, you know, screw everybody else. And that's how they ran their crew. When in 1988, I went for a violation, we had already decided. Kilroy had been hit in Tehachapi, and I was there when we were deciding that. Gabriel Huerta stabbed him on the yard, but we had already devised, like, yeah, he's got to go. He's a politicker. He created dissension within the organization, and it was already decided. When I go back for a violation in 1988 to Palm Hall and Chino, we subpoenaed Bevito Alvarez, and we're going to kill him there. And it felt so, I mean, it sounds evil, but it felt so damn good to look in his eyes and see fear, because I was the one that was going to stab him, me and Tupi Hernandez. And we were deciding, no, I'm going to stab him first. No, I'm going to stab him first. And we just said, let's just go until they shoot. And he knew it. He knew we were going to kill him, because he got subpoenaed to court without knowledge, and there's 5 brothers there, and we're all like, yeah, let's kill this dude. First day on the yard, we get him approved for the yard. We go to Leo Duarte, the IGI, later SSU agent. We get him approved for the yard. On his way to the yard, he goes into protective custody. We have 2 massive knives on the yard, and we're going to butcher this guy. And then in another event that same time, we get subpoenaed out to court for Freddie Gonzalez's Veneno from Pomona, Mexican Mafia member, who's now the head of the 2-5, right? We go to his trial, and we're going to kill him on the bus. And we already got a device to use a garrote wire, and we have knives and keys, and we're seeing him squirm. And I tell you, after the discomfort that they made me feel in Folsom, it was really satisfying to see that on his face. Me, a 22-year-old brother, seeing a 50-year-old brother squirm. And they have a phrase in Spanish, se le volteó el barco. His boat flipped. In other words, the circumstances had changed, right? And the shoe was on the other foot. And that was when I felt accomplished. I had survived a huge campaign against 2 titans, Kilroy and Bevito, and I survived that, and I started getting my sea legs, I guess, in the mob. But that was the first campaign, and it was pretty rough for me. But ultimately, we prevailed.
What was Bevito like when you met him in '85, or maybe you met him before '85? But what was he like when you first met him?
He was a dick. I mean, there's no other way. Arrogant, elitist, better than everybody else. I didn't like him from the moment I saw him. He had this funny thing. He had light-colored eyes, but he had like a ring around the irises of his eye, and I remember that. It looked kind of like a wolf's eye, right? I remember that about him. He was salt and pepper hair, handsome guy, but he was always a dick. I never felt welcome. Like, some cardenales made you feel welcome, like Black Dan Barella, Raymond Shryock, Weddle Squire, Raymond Garduno. Some of those brothers made you feel like you're their brother. I never felt that from Bevito.
Do you think there was a age gap, generation gap between guys like Bevito and Kilroy and young guys like you in your 20s, in early 20s at that?
Quite possibly, but my personal belief is that he did not like Weddle Shy. They had animosity going back decades.
And Weddle Shy is your older homie from Huerta,
Yeah.
from Artesia.
Yeah.
So, because anything against Widow Shyrock is going to be against anybody else in Arkansas.
Yeah.
That's how it goes, right?
Yeah, it's like they know we're voting with Shy. Me and Negro Villalba, the individual who was just killed in 2019, Mexican Mafia member, were made at the same time. And we're two homeboys of Shy's. That gives Shy 2 votes at everything he does. He knows that. I know that. Everybody knows that. You know, it's common practice, right? You vote with your crew. And Bevito knew this, so we immediately became targets for his animosity and his disdain. But I remember on one occasion, I got the black hand tattooed on my chest, life size. I got the pattern from the book Thinner from Richard Bachman, Stephen King. That was his pseudonym. I saw that pattern, and I had a guy named Wolfie from Arizona tattoo it on me. And I come out to the yard, and I'm rocking it. You know, I just made my bones. I'm in. I'm a full-blown carnal. And he tells me, "Why did you put that tattoo?" I said, "Because I'm a carnal." He says, "You have to earn that." And I looked at him, I says, "I did earn it when I got made." And there's all kinds of brothers walking around with Mexican Mafia on their chest and black hands. It wasn't as prevalent. The black hand was not as prevalent. After I did it, everybody did it. We're talking about Chico from Hazard. A number of brothers put the black hand, and now they're rocking it on their necks. It became a thing, right?
Your favorite brother has one of the biggest hands I've ever seen tattooed.
At Marquez?
No, Fox.
Oh, Fox. Uncle Fester. Good old Uncle Fester.
Right, he's got one almost like covering his whole pectoral, going up towards the neck.
So does Bet Marquez. He has one where the fingers actually emanate up the side of his neck, in front of his neck, and it's huge, right? Now it's just like a flamboyant tattoos. It's supposed to be a secret organization, but it's the worst kept secret in the criminal underworld.
So you knew when Bevito told you you shouldn't have got that tattoo, he was going to be a problem.
Yeah, instinctively, you get that vibe. Like,
So in 1988, like as you said, it felt good. Do you take the credit? You and
Dupi Hernandez,
Dupi pretty much ran him off the yard.
Bessie Sagato, Ronald Baez from Ontario. I think Black Dan Barella was there at the time, but left. But yeah, me and Dupi, we were the primary shooters. We were going to kill him.
And was that the end of Bevito's career?
End of his career. Right then, he was done. He was a PC. He was a rat. He was no good.
Now, how did Kilroy's career end? Because it didn't quite end that way. He seems to have been released from prison without ever having the PC up, but he did lose a lot of that power in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, as soon as he got hit, he was persona non grata. He was on the list. He was open season. He was stripped of his status, what they call stripped now, right? He was no longer a carnal.
What year did that happen?
That happened in 1988, the year I paroled. I paroled in 1988 from Tehachapi. In August of 1988, happened immediately after I paroled. It was already in the mix when I was leaving.
Now, how was it that Kilroy was able to still stay on a general population prison yard and not get ran off like Bevito got?
He didn't. We were in the SHU. This was the Southern Maximum Security Complex at Tehachapi. So as soon as he got hit by Sleepy Huerta, and he didn't knock Sleepy Huerta out. None of those stories are true because I believe somebody told me that he did a documentary and he claims to have knocked out Sleepy or chased him across the yard. That is not true. He got hit, he stepped back, and then Sleepy went to the other side of the yard, and that was it. Boom, it was done. He was hit. He was done. He wasn't on an active yard. He never, ever entered an active yard for the rest of his career. He was isolated and put himself PC.
You're saying he did go to a PC yard before I thought he was paroled from Pelican Bay. Am I mistaken about that?
No, he paroled. I believe he paroled from the SHU. The SHU. He was housed in protective custody for his administrative segregation, but he did not request protective custody. Kilroy never locked up.